Hi everyone, hope you're all good. I just thought I'd put this video together really, focusing on developing contrast within your drawings or your illustrations, and just on how important it can really be and how much it can pretty much create depth and bring your drawing to life really. So one of the biggest tips that I was given, and it's kind of stuck with me since, was don't be too scared about applying dark shades to your imagery, particularly black really. Sometimes it can be you're working into an image over and over and over and over, and you just feel like you're not getting anywhere with it, and it just looks like flat. It looks like one shade, and you know, like I just said, it's quite difficult to show that it's got any sort of life into it. So if you look here, for example, around this area of the rose that I've quickly drew up before, as you can see in here, yeah, there's some shades. You can see some of the lighter shades of the pink, you can see some of the darker shades of the red around here, so on and so on. But regards to this area, it looks quite flat. Now imagine if you was to remove all this, yeah, you'd think, oh, it's got a bit of depth to it, but you can always go further. Now if you look in these areas, in these petals, although they are really quite dark, this is an example to show as to what's too much really. So as you can see around here, it's not really blended in too well. I've gone over the top with the black, and it kind of just kills off the red a little bit. Never know, maybe it might look slightly different in that when I start to layer it into this area, but the bottom line of it is that if you look at this part, it's nowhere near, it's not got anywhere near as much depth compared to this bit here. So you can do this with any materials. You can do it with watercolours, you can do it with pencils, you can do it with pens, you can do it with colouring pens. Maybe you just want to stick to black and white. It's completely up to you. But just for the sake of this, I'm going to do it in watercolours because I quite enjoy working with watercolours. So what I suggest you probably do is maybe just start off with a light layer. I'm just going to slowly start to work into this part of the rose. Now, another thing that I advise as well is that when you are looking to add shading into your image, always have reference imagery to refer to. I mean, this is pretty straightforward, and the image that I've got, I've kind of memorized it in my mind, but I would advise, even when it's just drawing, never mind the shading, even when it's just drawing, always make sure that you've got some reference imagery. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic talent to have, to be able to draw from your mind or paint from your mind, whatever it may be, but sometimes you're setting yourself up for failure to an extent, because you might get an area wrong because you're not using your imagery to refer to, and it'd be such a shame to spend hours and hours on end working into an image and then you come to realise, oh, I've maybe messed that bit up because I've not really been working into it. So as you can see there, I've gone nowhere near as far out as what I have on this area. Now, although this area in particular, this black part, is really flat, we're obviously going to continue to build up the layers. Again, when it comes to using pencil or pen, you may not have to use as many layers as such, but you obviously, when we're using watercolours and other various paints, you do have to build up those layers more and more. Again, in terms of trying to blend, as we already know, you've got your different directions that you'll use your brush, and me, as we know, I like to go in a circular motion because I feel like you get much better coverage, just like so. So I'm going to leave that bit for now, and then I'll come back to it in a second when I am adding a bit more of a flatter black. Now, if I start to work into this part up here now, this is where it's going to start to come together. I'm going to apologise in advance for maybe going quiet from time to time. I have to concentrate. Now, work into this part up here. Now, if you've already noticed, if you look around the outside of the rose, I have already outlined it in quite a bold line of black, and that's another way of being able to create contrast in your image as well. I feel that different tones and shades can obviously be one direction, but also your different weights of line can also help create a bit of contrast as well. Now, inside this rose, I know that it's going to be quite dark. Now, obviously, when you think of a rose, you just think, oh, it's red, so straight away I'm just going to go crazy with all the reds, but sometimes that isn't necessarily right. Of course, this drawing here in particular it's not very realistic as such, but even still, you are still looking to layer in those shades of black to create some depth. Over, through there. It's going to blend through. Now, obviously, like I said, the areas on the outside of the rose, and these outside petals, I did go quite crazy with the black, but I'm thinking now that maybe I might be able to make it work. So, for the sake of this video, I've put in terms of watercolour, I have put the colour down first. Now, normally what I would advise is to maybe start off with your dark areas and then start to layer over your colour over the top. Especially for anyone that's looking to, say, be using inks to paint with. Again, I just feel like the black sits much more nicely with the colour when you put the black down, because otherwise it can start to create quite a dirty looking effect, really, like as you can see around here. But then again, you can always work back into it with other paint. So I'm going to work into around here. Like so, and take shape of the petal. Like so. I think what I will do is I'll probably work back into this with a little bit more red in a minute, just to be able to show you how the blends, not the blend, sorry, what I mean about the how you can make the colour much more richer again. Pop a little bit here. Now, obviously, this would work. Well, obviously, this sort of tip really would be much more beneficial if you are looking to be doing something quite realistic. But either way, it still applies to any drawing or anything that you anything that's visual, really. You always need to have that contrast. Now, when you look at a lot of drawings and painting, straight away I think it's probably the colour that stands out. It's probably one of the main things that catches your eye, but the reason why that then catches your eye is because subconsciously, so in other words, your brain knowing without actually you being obviously thinking into it, it's actually the black that makes everything else stand out. It's not so much the colour. So like I said, if it says the case that you're working with pencils, you just obviously maybe use a darker shade of pencil, or maybe it's a case that you'll press down harder. If it's a case that you're using pen, again, you'll be looking to create those darker shades by pressing down harder. the sake of this, obviously, if I'm using brush. So as you can see there, it's starting to build up now. And what I probably would advise now is that because some of these areas look quite dirty in terms of the colours, we're probably best off now going in with the solid black. And this is where I say it's going to make the difference, and it's to not to be too scared as such. Like obviously we can see we've got the blends here and there, but again it looks quite dirty, whereas in here it looks really, really solid. So I'm going to work back into that. I'm going to go with a bit here. Now again with this is the part where you have to be really, really careful, because you don't want to be going too crazy with it, because it might kill it off. So I'm going to go with that bit there. I'm going to go with a section up top. Like so. I'll have a little bit more. I'm going to work to this area. So, and as you can see now, it's all starting to come together. And it's that black that is making everything else stand out and have a bit more depth. And one of the biggest things that I want to try and put across with this is that, look, you don't have to be the best artist in the world to be able to just do something as simple as this. You don't have to do it on a rose. You don't have to, you know, it's the point that I'm trying to put across is that it's in any drawing that you do or have done in the past. Like, the reason why you might not feel that it looks as good, or areas that maybe you're thinking to yourself, oh, how could I improve? 9 times out of 10 it's looking to add that extra bit of shade into it, creating those really deep shades. This gives your image a bit of contrast. And it's little tips like this that when you look at people and think, oh, they're really good, it's because they're aware of it. So like I said, don't feel disheartened or feel like you're not capable of doing anything to this extent. It's just practice. Quickly pop that there, blend the ends a little bit more. Blend that a little bit further. And a little bit more on the corners over here. Now that is a bit more darker. I'll put a little bit on the side. Just like so. Oh, I'm lying. I need to put a little bit more black on the inside there. Like I say, you do have to be very careful as to actually how much black you're looking to put down, because like I said, sometimes it can completely kill the image. So you just have to be careful with that. And add a little bit more red in now, just to show you what I mean by working back into it with the layers and the tones. So obviously, like I've just said, sometimes the black, especially with watercolours, it might be a case that it makes it look quite dirty, so all you need to simply do is just get a little bit of colour you've been working with, blend it back in, as simple as that. So now that's just created a nice dark tone of red. I'm going to add a little bit more into here. Just make sure your paper's slightly wet beforehand. A bit of red into there. Now, personally with me and that, I could spend hours and hours and hours just continuing to work back into this. But I'm not going to torment myself a bit, or saying that I probably will end up tormenting myself, but you know. Now, although I'm going to finish on this, sorry. One thing that I will say as well is that although it's very important to have those dark tones, you need to be aware as well of the light tones. It's all about balance. So, for example, this area here, you've got the black, that's then faded right into the red, you've got nice dark shades of red, you've got your shades of pink, and then it fades out into the white. And that's where it's so important to be making sure that you've got your reference imagery to use, to refer to as well. Because otherwise that balance, you know, you're going to struggle to have it really. But realistically, that is that. Personally myself, on an image like this where it is quite bold and it is quite graphic, I would like to work back into it with the pen, and then that just simply means that I can then tidy up quite a few areas. Obviously when you're using watercolours, depending on what it is that you're looking to create, if you're doing something quite abstract, then, you know, it doesn't particularly matter if you make too much of a mess. But when you're working into, say, an image like this, you all know how much I love a nice clean cut drawing, and that is through using bold lines, tight, making sure your image is nice and tidy. I'm going to very quickly finish outlining this, and then that should be it. I think that's all my lines now. And then, well, it's not part of the video, but a little bit of detail in areas. Well, to be fair, although I did say that obviously you can create a bit of contrast using making sure you've got a lot of black in there, your darker shades. I suppose you can always work back into something with a bit of pen. So, there you have it. So, just to summarise, whenever it comes to drawing, painting, sketching, making sure that you've got that strong amount of contrast in there through making sure you've got your nice dark tones, you've got your solid black areas, maybe you have got bits of colour, whatever it may be. To create that depth, you need to making sure that you're working with the black parts, and the bottom line of it is don't be shy, don't be scared. If something gets wrecked, well then, you know, it's a learning curve. I'm the exact same. Every painting that I've done prior to understanding about making sure you got that solid amount of black in there, probably wrecked a few paintings, but it's how you get to where you are. It's all about being positive, and it's all about just understanding that, yeah, you might get something wrong, but it's all about building up those layers and making sure that you got the nice amount of balance between your black, your mids, and your whites. So, until next time, thank you, bye bye.